Welcome to Locals Only Cantina.
Mixing it up with
Brandon
and Cherie.
What's up? Welcome back.
Hey guys.
How's it going? Brandon and Cherie here. Coming at you with number 6. Last time I lied to you. Do you know that?
Yeah, I did.
I said it was number 4. It was actually 5.
Yeah. I knew you were lying, but
I figured it out when I
didn't
looked
want to
at
hurt
our...
your ego.
No. Fucking say that shit. Say, no, it's 5. It would have made me feel more cool.
Actually, I just wasn't sure if I was right or not.
We have one extra than I thought.
Don't stand up and think you're right about something when you're not
That's
really
right.
sure.
Remember, you might be wrong, or you might be the asshole, or something like that. No, so we are doing number 6 right now. Again, it's a Sunday night. We've been trying to do these things Sunday mornings, but life gets weird and stuff to do all the time, and so we're making it work. But we have right here a little bit of the sacrament. We're having some wine this time instead of liquor or beer or anything like that, and it's because we're going to talk about church.
Way to preface it.
Preface it. No, so we cheers, but we didn't drink it. I think that's a sin.
Bad luck, right? Or a sin, yeah.
It's a sin, yeah. You can't cheers and not drink. So, it's just part of our story. I don't think you can get through all this stuff without this. This is a huge part of our life and story, and led us to where we are now and took us through a lot of the bullshit that we went through and all that. So we are going to have this discussion. Now, we were both raised in a certain church, a certain religion. And by discussing this, we're not trying to attack anyone in that religion, because this is actually a very universal thing, I think, because we have several friends that came from other religions and everything that experienced very similar things to us, right?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about the fact that we were specifically raised in the Mormon Church, although that's the experience we have. You could probably replace any other religion in our story and have a very similar experience for untold amounts of people out there.
Yeah, and so if you guys listened to our first episode, you guys kind of got a little bit of information about how I was a little bit hesitant to start this podcast, because this podcast is going to have us tell our real true story, and part of that true story is how we left our religion. And leaving our religion, it was a huge part of one of our biggest fights that we ever got in, to where I almost divorced Brandon. And I mean, there's a lot of trauma that comes into play when we talk about this. And when we talk about it, we're not trying to hurt anybody in any way, but it's our story. It's where we came from. So
the thing that's scared Cherie about all this, though, is it's like the people that we know that are still in it, our family, our friends, we still love them to death, right? We just have a different viewpoint now from what we used to, right? And the thing that's scary for Cherie is she doesn't want to hurt any feelings.
Because I love everyone.
Yeah, it's not as scary for me, because I really don't fucking care if you don't like me or not, right? But she is way more kind and nice and sweet than I am. Although at the same time, I'm not out looking to offend either, though, right? I'm just going to tell my story, and somebody can choose to be offended or not. I hope sincerely that they don't, right? I would prefer that they just hear the story and the message, the words that we have. But this is could be a subject for a whole another show, another podcast. You just can't let what you're afraid of, what you think people might think of you, stop you from doing the things that you want to do or need to do, right? And this is one of those things that if we're going to do this, it has to be discussed.
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge part of our journey, and this was a very life-changing moment for us. But before we get to the life-changing...
Well, it was like years.
Before we get to the life-changing part, actually, we just prefaced that because we're going to kind of get in... Like, we kind of want to follow along in what was going on in our lives. Like last 2 episodes ago, we talked about getting engaged and stuff, and now we're kind of moving into when we got married, and we were married in the temple, the LDS temple.
Yes, we were.
And so we're not really going to go into what we feel. We're not really trying to take people away from the LDS religion, but, you know, if you're listening to this, there might be some things that may make you question it.
And if you have questions, DMs are open.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really feel like it's kind of a crazy thing because I've actually thought a lot about this, and I feel like there's a big part of my journey that needs to be able to help people with this process and being able to be able to have that transition in a healthy way. But right now we're going to kind of start with just like getting married and what all entailed there, and kind of the negative and the positive that came from growing up the way that we did and transitioning into getting married in the temple. So
all right,
anyway.
You start.
Okay, so for any of you who are not from a similar religion or from the LDS religion, you grow up as a woman kind of trying to keep yourself pure as a woman, and pure meaning that you're not going to do anything sexual ever between guys and girls, you know, not just girls. But I would say some of the negative things that I think came from the religion that we grew up in for women is you're constantly told things that make you question kind of like the way that you feel about yourself, about your body, and about how you actually kind of get into getting married and transitioning into having sex. And it's a big mind game that you have to play when you, especially if you're a woman, because it's a little different than men. But that make any sense? I think I rambled for like...
It did make sense to me because I understand what you're saying. But for example, those of you who are listening on Apple Podcast or what's it called? Podbean or something like that, you won't see it. But if you're on YouTube, you'll see this right now. For those of you that don't understand, I'm going to tell you something right now. Cherie and I are both dressed very inappropriately right now.
Yeah.
Right now. We are not dressed correctly. And I'll tell you why. So we got our sexy porn shoulders out. They're going because we're wearing tank tops. You're not allowed to wear tank tops. Like, this is the like just an example of the degree as to which things are like so outside the norm, right? Because
yes,
you're taught, what she meant was like, I think, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. The church teaches them to feel certain ways about themselves, sexually, this and that. If Cherie were to leave the house dressed like she is right now, certain men in the church would say that if people had nasty thoughts about her or tried to do dirty things to her, it would be her fault for provoking her because of the way that she's dressed. Because, you know, when you see shoulders like that, you just lose all fucking self-control, right?
Well, from a very young age, you learn that you need to dress appropriately. And appropriately means that you wear sleeves and you have long shorts, right? And
past your knees. Shorts have to go past your knees.
Well, to your knees. Not too bad, but
to your knees.
Okay, that's still bad.
That's still bad.
But I think the negative part that comes into play there is we're in the church, they're constantly telling women, and I'm sorry, but this is just the reality of it, that, you know, if you wear tank tops, if you show your arms, you're going to put bad thoughts into young men's minds. And so you're constantly growing up having this feeling of it being your fault that men have the thoughts that they have. And also there's like a lesson...
Totally your fault.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she's super hot, and she always makes me think dirty thoughts.
Anyway, no. So the crazy thing about it, and actually Elizabeth Smart was one that talked about this, and somebody this weekend actually just reminded me of it, that Elizabeth Smart, I don't know if any of you guys know her story, but she was actually taken away from her home and
in Utah, not too far from where we lived at the time. Actually.
Yeah, so she was actually kidnapped from her home and taken into another religious cult that held her for almost a year, and she was like 8 or something. Like she was young.
She was older than that, but still young.
12 or something like that.
Young.
And
she was either a tween or a early teen when she was found.
Still very young. But she was able to escape, and she was able to tell her story. And one of the things that she talks about is she's very much an advocate for changing the ways that are being taught in the LDS religion. And one of those things she talks about is, this is a lesson that I even learned when I was younger. And it was a lesson, and I don't know if it was part of the lesson book or if it was just one of the lessons that they heard, and then they heard in conference. They have a general conference, which is like a big conference that they have to tell everybody how they should live their lives. And anyway, so
I love the way you put that. They tell you how to live your life.
And so this lesson that
they tell you how to live your life with stories from 1876.
Yeah, so
and how faithful they were back then.
One of the lessons that I actually heard probably multiple times throughout my upbringing, and it wasn't my parents exactly, it was a message that was passed down through lessons through the church, but one of the lessons is you don't want to be a chewed up piece of gum.
This is the worst.
And
this is real.
And this is real.
We had this lesson in church as kids lots of times.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even probably count how many times I heard this lesson, but it was really actually...
You want to be a virgin piece of gum.
Yeah, it was
still
really,
in the wrapper.
It was really focused upon women, though. Honestly, it really was something.
Oh yeah, it's not a guy thing.
No, you were told as a woman is if you did sexual things or you had sex before you got married, you could be seen as being a chewed up piece of gum. And
I remember a visual of it with hairs and fucking flies and stuff stuck in this piece of chewed gum.
Yeah.
This is the shit that we learned, that we were taught. It sounds so stupid, but for those of you that understand, you understand.
Yeah, but here's the crazy thing is when you're a young kid, when you're a young woman and you're growing up and believing, I mean, your parents teach you to really have respect and believe everything that is taught at church. When you hear these types of lessons, you really take it to heart, and you're like, I don't want to be a chewed up piece of gum. I don't want to be seen that way, And also there was another lesson kind of similar I remember being taught, where it was something to the fact that you want to keep your doors locked. You don't want to have your door open to where anyone can come in anytime they want.
That's quite the visual.
Right.
But ladies out there, keep your doors closed, not open.
Yeah, but I mean...
Because any guy will just charge on in there.
Yeah,
right?
But from a very...
so stupid.
But from a very young age, and I mean... We kind of laugh about this, but this was actually something that
traumatic, actually.
Super traumatic. Yeah. Super traumatic for me.
Not just for you, for dudes too, for sure.
Yeah, because...
Maybe less so, but...
I think a little less so, because a lot of times in the church, they would actually make you feel like it was the girl's fault for any guy having any type of feeling towards you, right? If you...
I agree with that.
I'm gonna punch him in the face.
I don't actually agree with that, but...
I know he likes to torment me. Anyway.
It is her fault. Look at her.
No, but I mean, here's the thing. We... At very young ages, we were taught that we were the ones who put those thoughts in these guys' heads. And so we really always felt this, sense of responsibility for someone else's actions. And so from a very young age, as women, we're taught, you control this. It's your fault if this happens. If some guy wants to touch you inappropriately, it's your fault because of the clothes you're wearing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring one of these situations up that when we before Brian and I actually got together, I was in we call it wards, where we go to church with a certain group of people in our area.
They live within a few blocks of each other, and
yeah, and I was going to this ward when I was in college. It was a college ward, and I just decided that I needed to, and this is going to be fun to share this publicly, but but anyway.
That's okay. We only have 3 listeners. It's fine.
Okay. So,
and most of them are our close friends who probably know this story.
Probably true. But one of the things that I decided was, okay, I felt like I was really working on myself and wanting to get to a point where I found the person that I wanted to be with, who I wanted to marry. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't really feel great about some things that happened with some certain guys that I dated, right? And things that went a little too far. And I do believe that those things went further than I was prepared for, because I wasn't prepared for dating in general. Honestly, in the church, you're taught never have sex, never have sex, never have sex. And then, you should probably never have sex.
Not even sex.
But
in her house, butt was a bad word. You weren't allowed to say the word butt, right? Let alone anything else that might include a discussion about things a little bit more racier than the word butt, right?
Yeah, I mean, my parents
raised very naively, right?
Yeah, I was very naive to every situation, because you're not taught to be prepared for those situations. And so, even I was dating this guy in college, and he came home with me to meet my parents one time, and I was folding my laundry, because I brought all my laundry home, and I was folding my laundry, and my mom kind of pulled me aside and said, oh, I shouldn't be folding my laundry in front of this guy. And it was just okay, people go to the store and they see underwear on the shelf, they see it on mannequins. It didn't really make sense to me, and I thought it was
You're Mom, this dude knows I wear underwear.
But it was just that concept, and Mom, I love you. I'm not trying to say anything bad about you, but it's just this whole framing of thinking that we put into women's heads before they actually go on dates and stuff.
Not your mom's fault either, though. That's how she was taught, right?
No, that's it's traditional, and you keep teaching your kids
Cherie's
what you taught.
Mom's the shit.
Yeah, she's
awesome.
Kind of awesome.
But we were both raised this way to some degree, right? My mom might have been a little less extreme, but still, it was still a thing,
But anyway, getting back to what I was saying before, so I remember going to talk to my bishop, which he was the kind of the preacher over this area.
Like a pastor almost.
Like a pastor.
Right?
Pasture.
A pasture. A pasture. There's cows out there. They're grazing. It's a good time.
He's over all those.
The bishop is the Mormon version of pastor.
Yeah. So anyways, you would go and you tell the bishop these things, that say any type of sins or whatever, you tell him so that he could help you work through these sins, and you could end up going to the temple. I wanted to make sure that I was temple worthy, so I actually went to my bishop to talk to him about a few things that, and I would have been able to handle them better had I not been taught a certain way and taught to ignore the things that could happen on a date, or that men thought, I always felt like it was my fault the way that men thought about me. And I needed to be taught that that men think about sex whether I have my shoulder showing or not, Yeah. That would have been a healthier way for me to learn that, and to learn how to say no if I wanted to say no. Say, know that I have the choice in the matter, and it's not me causing him to feel that way. And that was a very confusing, hard thing.
What's fucked up about that, though? The flip side? You're talking about your college years, right?
Yeah.
It would have also been nice to be able to say yes if you wanted to say yes also, right? In the religion that we grew up in, I think we already mentioned this in another podcast, but there's 3 worst sins, right? Number 1 is denying the Holy Ghost. Number 2 is committing murder. The number 3 worst sin is having premarital sex. Go figure that shit out, right? So 1 is denying God. Next is fucking like ending someone's life. And then the third one is like showing affection to somebody that you probably care about, right? I mean, there's times, let's be real, there's one night stands here and there where you don't go, but in theory, like you probably both had some fun at least, right? I always found that super strange that like this is the example that I always use is, so what you're saying to me is I could beat you nearly to death, and as long as you don't die, that's not as bad as me having premarital sex. I think that's super strange. There are so many worse fucking things you can do, right? But that was what we were taught. Like, sex was next to murder. Yeah. It was damn near as bad as it, right? Like, I mean, as silly as I just put that, let that sink into you. Having premarital sex or doing things. And also they would teach you, right? They would say, what's the thing they would say all the time is not just sex, but things that are like sex, right? Are still the same as sex, right? Mm-hmm. It's still the same, right? So like if you do that thing, fuck man, you're almost like as bad as some dude sitting on fucking death row. Yeah. Because he put an ice pick through somebody's fucking skull, right? Like that is how we were taught as kids. Like let that sink in. I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. That is real, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so kind of what played into, I mean, for me being a mom nowadays, like I just want to make sure that my daughters know how to handle themselves in situations, because I definitely did not know how to handle myself in situations, because you go on a date and you're so naive to these situations that really you're so easily manipulated into so many situations. And I never want my daughters to ever feel like they can't handle a situation. But it's just from things that I've been taught, and I wanted things to be a little bit different. But anyways, I went to go talk to this bishop in my college ward, and I told him that certain things had happened. And you know, his questions were to me, instead of saying, hey, like, let's work through this. This is like the progression that you need to go to be able to get rid of these sins or whatever. He said to me, what kind of clothing were you wearing? That was his question that he asked me. His immediate thought in any situation that I brought up is he thought that it was me bringing it on myself. And it was weirdly in that moment, like I knew something wasn't right about that. And I knew, because I knew in those situations that I was so naive to those situations. I had no idea how to handle those situations. And to have somebody who I respected and looked up to ask me a question and put the blame on me.
Makes you feel like that big, right?
Yeah. I honestly felt like that piece of gum, you know? And I didn't need to feel like that. I hadn't had sex with anybody. I hadn't done anything awful. It was just that, actually, I'll just say it, guys had touched me inappropriately. And I didn't touch them inappropriately. They touched me inappropriately, and I brought it up to my bishop, and it was my fault. Like, it was because of the clothes. And he asked me specifically what type of clothes that I was wearing. And I remember just thinking...
I think the dude wanted an image in his head. Myself.
But I think that... like, it just really, like, brought me to a point where I was like, okay, wait. So I didn't ever dress inappropriately. Like, I was really good about the way that I dressed. I was good about, you know, like here's the thing that I always struggled with is that I had boobs and I had a body, and guess what? When people looked at me, they might have thought certain things, but I always dressed appropriate. I always dressed the way that I needed to, and to have some man tell me that it was most likely my fault was so hurtful to me.
I think if we're gonna discuss this, we need to discuss this. Yeah. We're gonna get fucking real with this shit.
Okay.
Like, that's fucked up, right? I think you guys would all agree. At least you should all agree. But it's not a female thing specifically, or only. I remember being like 8 years old. So every year around your birthday, you have to be interviewed by the bishop, right? Remember that? Mm-hmm. And especially when you advanced in like, there's like, it's not rank, but like as you get older, you get called something else. You're like a teacher, you're a deacon, you're a girls have their own young women's thing and stuff. You get a little like advancement in like fucking rank, right? But it starts about when you're 8 because you get baptized when you're 8. I remember being like 8 years old, being interviewed to be baptized, and my bishop asked me if I like masturbated. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. Like it was freaking like beyond my. Now, of course, I eventually learned what that meant, right? Because I'm a dude, right? I'm a human being with freaking feelings and emotions and hormones and stuff. So, but at the time, I do remember being so young. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, right? And I had a bishop explain to me what that meant. Fucking weird, right?
Which
that
I
should
just have
not
to say,
be taken like behind closed doors. My parents were nowhere near.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you do have children going and having these interviews, you do have every right to be in the room with them.
And you should be.
You should be.
Because I've had discussions with people about this. They're like, oh, well, I was never asked those things. I'm like, well, lucky for you, but I was, you know. In fact, I mean, I don't think I ever had a bishop's interview where I didn't get asked that. Now, there was a time where I was telling the truth that I didn't even know what that was. And then there was a time after that I lied about it, right? Because there's two types of people in this life. People that say they don't masturbate and people that fucking lie, right? So eventually I got to the point where I just started to lie, right? But that being said, let me just like kind of skip a few years and I'll tell you the very last time that I ever repented, because that's what you're supposed to do. It's like the Catholic thing where they go in a little booth and they repent of their sins and stuff. Mormons have their own thing too. Instead of a little booth, you go in the bishop's office and you confess your sins. The last time that I ever repented, that I ever did that thing, I repented to my bishop in San Jose, California, and it was because of that. I just got home from my 2-year Mormon mission. All of it, like, you're 2 years out, it's just like you and another guy, companion, you don't date, you don't do all that stuff. And then I got home and I'm like, oh shit, like I'm free, like I have time to myself again. I fell to what I thought at the time was temptation, what I now say is just normal human activity, right? But I felt guilty, and I went and I'm just gonna say his name because fuck him, Bishop Knight. I went and repented to him. This guy, you know where that fucker is right now? He's behind bars in prison for molesting kids in the ward in the church that he went to that he was responsible for. I repented to a pedophile. I sat across the desk from this guy and talked to him about this. Later on in life, found out that he was molesting children.
Yeah, so that's why we say it's very important to be there with your children when they go into those
because
interviews.
These guys will ask your kids shit that they should not be asking them. Now, I was actually an adult at this time because I was like 20-something years old. I just got home from my mission. But I still was asked those same things when I was younger, though, is my point.
And we're not saying that every bishop does that.
No. But still, you got to be like careful and aware. Don't be naive to the fact that that might be taking place. Okay. Yeah. So, all right, next. Let's go. Like, so we kind of went real dark there for a second.
So the reason why we say this is because it kind of plays into.
Well, I think it's just something that has to be said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't just gloss over stuff like that's important shit that has to be said.
Yeah, I mean, this is really hard for me to talk about because it is something that I know does need to be said, but it's super hard to say when you still love people who are in that religion. And here's the thing is I don't blame them for any of those things that I went through, but I know I'm not the only woman, and he's not the only man who's ever felt the way that we felt, you know, and And we just kind of hope too to be able to help people realize that they're not alone in the way that they felt growing up, or maybe they're still going through it and going through those things. And
people feel alone.
Yeah, when
because they're too afraid to talk about it, so they feel like they're the only one.
Yeah, so we kind of feel like this message is to really help people who need to move through this kind of process, but kind of playing into what our next step in life was.
That was a long sidetrack, I feel like.
Yeah, we kind of prefaced for a little bit on that, but anyways. The reason why we wanted to bring this up is because going into getting married in the temple, you have to make sure that you are not a sinner to go to the temple.
Yeah,
and that you
can't do stuff like that.
Brandon and I had to keep ourselves very clean to be able to go to the temple. Like clean meaning that we weren't
not a dirty piece of gum, that's for sure.
I couldn't be a chewed up piece of gum to go to the temple.
She was just nibbled on.
And that's basically what they teach you in that lesson, is that you cannot be a chewed up piece of gum.
But that's why our engagement was short, though, right? Because in fact, we got to the point where we would be like, we were engaged, and I was committed. Like, we're gonna do this temple thing, and we're gonna do it right? And she would try to kiss me and make out with me, and I mean, it gets fucking hard. You can't resist for so long, right? You're a grown man. I mean, at least 20-something year old man. Nowadays we think they're kids, but I felt like a grown man at the time. And I finally was just I told Cherie, I'm like, listen, you got to either stop that or I'm going to take off your clothes right now. And she didn't believe me. And so I started, and I taught her that I meant what I said, right? So
I had to run away.
Yeah. So, but we would, but it's hard, right? Because we had that drive, we had that attraction, we had that affection towards each other. And so in the Mormon Church, oftentimes I would imagine other churches that are that extreme to that degree are the same way. Our engagement was short because we wanted to remain worthy for the temple.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit harder for guys than it is for girls. Girls, you
have no fucking idea.
And that's why men have a lot harder time with masturbation than girls do as well, because it's a physical thing that they have happen to them, where girls, it happens a little differently, right? But part of the reason why I want to bring this up is...
How'd you tie that into it?
I don't know where that came from.
I don't know. All right. It's good times, though. Let's go. Okay.
So anyway, leading up to us getting married, it was kind of a funny day, actually, thinking back on it.
Funny day?
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I was late for my own wedding. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, and I remember what your mom said to me that day.
Oh.
She says to me, well, just think, next week she'll never have to be late for anything again, because once you're married, she won't have to look cute for you anymore. And I said, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it had something to do with yeah, that's not how this is going down. That's some bullshit right there.
No, but I think that's how a lot of people think.
That's how it happens, and we're gonna go into this at some point in time.
Yeah.
And I've already said this, actually, as far as the guy's point of view, how they get married and all of a sudden they give away all their cool, right? Women do the same thing too. They get married and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm comfortable now. I'm going to chop off my hair. I'm going to gain some weight. I'm going to do this thing. I'm not going to care about the way I look anymore. Pull the fucking pin on the fat grenade, right? We all do shit like that, right? But it's not healthy. Can I just say
one thing, though?
It's not healthy.
Can I just say one thing?
What?
You broke the rule. I didn't break the rule.
What rule?
So you were
pull the pin?
No, you told me, you're I remember having this conversation, you're all girls cut their hair and they get the mom hairdo.
Oh, Jesus. I shaved my head in high school. Just because I didn't have it shaved when I met you.
When him and I first got married, I was I loved his hair. He had a little...
I looked like In Sync. I had fucking frosted tips and shit. And...
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, would you still? Hot. You want me to grow my hair out and frost my tips now?
Sure, do it.
I
No,
shaved my
I
head
always
in high
make fun
school.
of him because
That was not a
he's
thing.
like, don't you ever like just cut your hair right after we get married. He totally shaved his head right after we got married.
Not right after.
Only like
Here's the
2
thing.
years in.
I've got a friend that's kind of a social media guy and this and that, and I remember he had one of his shows or one of his things he did that talked about how guys were like talking shit because he wears his hat all the time, right? And he said he's like, yeah, well, maybe I am insecure about my bald head and everything. And I'm like, dude, fuck that, dude. Like, you look good with your head shaved. You also look good with your fucking hat on too. I have a full head of hair. I have chosen to shave my head since high school. I did happen to have hair when I met her, but again, like I said, like the dating and the engagement and shit was short. I didn't shave my head because I went bald. I didn't shave my head because I got married. I shaved my head because I fucking like it. That's why. Suck on that one. Cold hard truths right there.
I just always have to give him shit about it because he told me not to have the mom haircut and he totally shaved his head a few years after.
This isn't
and
like,
it's been shaved
but
ever
this
since.
isn't like just like a dad or a mom hair. This is all this is on like. I do this on purpose.
That's so special.
Yeah, it's sexy, and you know it.
I'm sexy.
Now I'm gonna put on my hat again because
actually,
I like it.
I'm
not
sexy
because I'm
and
trying
I know it.
Yeah,
that's how
I'm
it goes.
sexy and I know it. That's right. Okay. Anyways, move beyond that one.
No, so it was actually kind of a funny day because didn't you forget? Like, didn't we lose our rings or something? Also,
I didn't lose my ring.
Oh, I lost your ring.
You lost the ring.
So
she was late. She lost the ring.
I was so prepared for this wedding. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be jealous.
Yeah.
Can't hate. Anyway, but I was late because I have a lot of hair and my friends were awesome and they wanted to help me get my hair done and it took a lot longer than it was supposed to, and I ended up being a half an hour late to my own wedding.
She did look
at
good.
the temple,
yeah.
and
the temple has like weddings going on like all day long. Like you can't be that late.
Yeah, you can't, and so it was really bad. And then I don't even think we had your ring for the ceremony because we lost it. Did we?
No,
okay.
we had you. You lost my ring, but you found it though. Well, actually, no.
Do you remember?
Did we?
I don't think we did. I think they brought it to us afterward.
I totally forgot about this. You did. You put somebody else's fucking fake ring on my finger, I think.
Yeah.
You did, and we had it afterwards.
I think it was your fault, though.
It was
pretty sure
fault.
it was your fault.
It wasn't my fault. I had hers. I was on time also.
Oh,
I was all prepared.
Just gloat about
that. I totally forgot about that. You did. I got married with somebody else's ring on my finger, and if I remember right, I don't even think it even fit me. I think it was your dad's ring.
It probably was.
Yeah, I think. That's awesome.
No,
okay,
but...
all right. I totally forgot about that.
But anyway,
Anyway.
Going into...
Anywho.
But here's the thing, like, you're leading up to this one day, and you're so taught that you need to save yourself for this one day, right? And the crazy thing that going into it, like so one of the funny things is I had a bridal shower. My bestie, she actually was super cool, and she did this. I had a friend's bridal shower, and then I had a family bridal shower. My family bridal shower was like very, very like, I don't know the word, kind of, well, family oriented. And then my friend kind of tried to give me like a real bachelorette party, right? And I wasn't prepared for it. I was
real. It wasn't real. Not like these guys all think is real.
No, you know what she did? I don't think you even know what she did.
I don't know. Maybe
she actually was super badass, and she went to Blue Boutique and she got like penis shaped stuff to make for my party.
But she didn't get you like a stripper though or anything like that.
Oh, damn it. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it was like a little too much for me. I remember that. I remember feeling that because I had, here's the other thing. How much time do we have? We're running out of time.
No, we don't.
But it's kind of fun.
We have as much time as we want.
Here's a fun part.
This is our show. We own this shit. We can go fucking as long as we want to.
So here's the funny part is because of growing up the way that I did and not having sex before getting married, I never even knew what a penis looked like until like a couple months before we got married. And my friend Tasha.
We're naming names now.
Nope, that's not her name. Anyway, my friend, nobody knows who she is.
No,
she won't even listen.
She won't. She lives in Canada, I think.
Now let's just like name where she's at. No,
Canada is a big place.
Anyway, so I remember it was so funny because she came home from school and I believe it was her, maybe it was one of our other roommates. She was taking a medical class and she had this book and we were all LDS girls, right? And so they bring home this book and they're like, she's like, have you even seen a penis before? And I'm like, no, I need to see one, right?
It sounds so sad.
It is so sad. This
is
is college. Like, I feel like I should be
These
12.
These are college students. These are adults living on their own. Right?
True story.
She lived in this cool apartment downtown with some other girls downtown. Salt Lake. College students, adults, living on their own.
And my roommate was
this happened.
You're getting married, you should know what one looks like, right? So she opens up her medical book, which is so funny because
I hope it was like this gross diseased one, you were like pleasantly surprised when you're like, oh,
they were the most awful looking things ever, and so we were just like,
Jesus Christ,
like completely horrified.
This was actually like before the days when we had like the internet on our phone, you could just like look stuff up and.
Yeah, we had a book that
she had to
just
use
showed
her,
us all the diseased
she had to use her
ones.
fucking medical textbook from the U of U.
Yeah, it was pretty awful that I had to learn that way.
This is gross. Okay, sorry guys. Anyways,
but
so
yeah, the crazy
on.
thing is though, is like we just have to say these things because this is like the natural process of like how it happened, right?
Yes.
Like, and there's many other women who are going to maybe relate or maybe be like, I don't know, horrified, whatever. But even here's another awful thing. I'm just gonna say it, and it's super. Maybe I shouldn't say.
We started it now. Go for it. Can't start and then stop.
I remember going to my doctor. Oh no, maybe I shouldn't. This is gonna be okay. So I went to my doctor, and she knew that I had never had sex before. So she decided that I should have fun on my wedding night instead of it being a traumatic, awful experience. And actually, it was kind of cool that she did this. But it also, I feel like maybe I should have had that experience. I don't know. But she gave me sizers. Do you guys know what sizers are?
They prepare you for somebody like me.
Wow. Okay.
You fed that one to me like hook, not line, and sinker.
No, but I mean
it could have disappointed you though. Like, what if I was?
Whoa.
What if I was like under?
Now he's trying to oversell
himself. Right. What if I was like way worse than what you? And then you're like, well, shit. Now I can't feel anything.
No, but this is the things that like you have to go through when you are kept from all of that, right? And you can't experience it on your own.
I guess that's the point of all this story is normal people don't have to go through all this stuff.
Yeah, right? But think of all the trauma that I like, and especially like even like on our wedding night, like. I mean, we did
trauma.
We did the whole Mormon thing.
I don't know about you, but I had fun.
No, I mean leading up to that night, it was super scary. It was
the wedding was
like everything for your wedding night and being able to have sex for the first time. It should have been this like comfortable, beautiful thing that you experience together with the person that you love, right? And for me, it was terrifying. Like, I didn't know what to expect. I was excited, but I didn't know what to expect. And I know there's many people out there that didn't have as good of an experience as I had. And I think that's why this conversation needs to happen. Is because
as terrified as you were, I've had discussions with people. There's people that had much worse.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I wouldn't even describe it as worse, like bad, because it wasn't like we had a fun time. It might have been like scary for you, like leading up to it, but I feel like once we got got into it, it was fun, right? Like a bunch of times fun, because you've been waiting your whole life for this, right? But that being said, we've had
his whole life for this, right?
We've had these discussions with friends of ours, people that we know, that they didn't luck out like that. Like it was traumatic, it was scary, it was painful, it was awful, it was no good. We had friends come back from honeymoon saying, I think my husband's gay, right? Because he didn't want to touch me the whole time, right? And it's like this. It's so hard to be like, this thing is like, it's the second next thing second next thing to murder. And then all of a sudden, one day you go to this thing, you wear some weird clothes, you go to a weird building, and then you say, I do. And all of a sudden, like, that thing's okay. That's really hard for people to get past.
Yeah, 100%. And crazy thing is
I didn't have a hard time with it. I thought it was awesome. But I finally was done with all that bullshit. But people do, though.
I think too, a lot of people in religion, and maybe not even just the LDS religion, but in religion in general, that save themselves for marriage, a lot of women, because things happen differently for men have a physical need that needs to be met. Women are a little bit different, to where that isn't always the case, right? And so sometimes if you haven't experienced it or explored it yourself, you have no idea what sex is, and you go into it and you are horrified by it. Like, you don't even know how to even get through it, and it ends up being a negative thing in your relationship instead of being a positive thing, when it should be a positive thing. And it 100% can be a positive thing if you started off the right way. But I think there's a lot of negative feelings and negative thoughts that come into play when you start off a relationship that way, and all of a sudden maybe you feel like it's an obligation for your marriage, or it's something that you can use as power against the other person in your marriage. And I think it's really sad to think that a lot of marriages, because of religion or even cultural circumstances, you may not realize how beautiful it can be for your relationship. And I think that's kind of where I want to go with this, is just that when you set up something to be so negative before you even have it in your life, how do you flip the switch? How do you make that something positive for your relationship? And it's definitely possible, you guys. And I think that's the important part of this whole conversation, is really that sex is something that you can add to and you can grow with as a couple, if you're both willing to be able to put the other person first in that aspect, and want them to enjoy sex just as much as you're enjoying sex. And I think that a lot of people don't know how to do that when they come with that background,
I think that the more that I talk to people, the more I'm surprised as to how many people don't know how to.
Yeah.
Like freakily surprised, actually. Like it's a bad thing. I
think even me, even when we were still going to church and still a part of all that, I had friends that reached out to me, and they told me, they confided in me about the way that they felt sex was, and it was so saddening to me to know that these women weren't enjoying that part of their relationship. And I weirdly wanted to teach a class. I'm like, I just want to teach a class. I want to show every woman how to enjoy sex, because...
And I'm like, can I come to that class? Well, that sounds like fun to me.
Yeah, even this was
how are you going to show them? That sounds awesome.
That was the complicated part.
That's the hard part, right?
No, but I feel
comfortable in their own room behind closed doors. I don't think they're gonna feel awesome in a class like that.
No, I think
but it's a needful thing, though. I think, though, to some degree. Still.
Yeah, 100%. I think we just have, when you grow up in that way, you don't realize how that negative thought towards sex can play into how you enjoy it for your future.
Yeah.
And I think that there are so many still to this day, who think that sex is an obligation, that it's just to give towards the man, and there's so many things that play into that.
I've had multiple conversations with guys about this, and I'll hear somebody say, well, I think that I should have sex twice a week or 3 times a week or something like that, and she just won't do it, and blah, 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 this and that, and I think that's very unfair. And I'm just like, there's no other way to say this besides this. Listen, guys, this is for you. If you want her to have sex with you on a regular basis, she has to want to have sex with you, right? Now, whatever reason that might be, that she's not wanting to have sex with you, but if a girl says to you, I don't care if she's your wife of 50 years, if a girl says to you, I'm not in the mood, I don't do that, I don't want to do that, I don't like that, just go ahead and add 2 more words onto the end of her sentence, and it's this: with you. She doesn't want to do it with you, and your question that you have to ask yourself is why? What am I doing, and what can I do differently? That's the thing that interests me. I used to have the job that I used to have at the fire department. I used to have discussions with guys all the time about this thing. My wife won't do this. She won't do that. I don't get enough of this. I don't get enough of that. And I'm like, listen, dude, you make her come 3 times a night, you're never going to have to want for sex. Stop being so goddamn selfish. Make it more about her. Make her feel good, and she will want to do it again the next night, right? There's all sorts of things to do. And this is what Cherie and I want to do with this podcast. We want to discuss these things. We want to have these discussions because, listen, I'm going to be the first to say it. There's going to be guys that DM me, they're going to email me, they're going to say shit like, well, that's not fair, that's not right, she should love me for who I am. On the other side, too, there's girls, they fucking pulled the pin on the fat grenade, and they're like, he should love me no matter what, right? I'm going to say this right now, as politically incorrect as shit. It's just not fucking fair. Doesn't have to be fair. It's not supposed to be fair. It is what it is. We all have eyeballs. We all have hands. We feel what we feel. We're attracted to what we're attracted to. And if I'm going to speak to the guys right now, if you're not getting what you want at home, it's because you're not giving what she wants at home.
Hell yeah.
Right? Whether it's fair, right, wrong, and different, I don't fucking give a shit. You gotta learn. You gotta learn the game, okay? I just had this discussion just actually this morning at the gym with a guy, and we were talking about marriage. We were talking about life, and we were talking about this shit. And I'm like, I've always understood to some degree that the need to game your wife, your girlfriend, your long-term partner, I don't care what, it never ends. Never. Right? And I've already said this on this show before, and I'm going to say it 1,000 more times because it's true. You can't give away your cool. You can't stop doing all the shit that they were attracted to in the first place, right? And then when it comes to the bedroom, for sure, if you want, there's a difference. This is going to sound harsh. There's a difference, guys, between some guys saying well, I want sex twice a week, 3 times a week, right? And she won't give it to me. She needs to, right? Are you masturbating with her body, or are you fucking her, right? Are you making love to her, right? I don't like the term make love. It makes me feel a little bit weird. I like a little bit more hardcore stuff, right? But
I like it. I don't know.
My point is this, right? Are you just getting what you need and then you're done? Because if you do, and then she refuses to have sex with you next time, well, that makes some sense, right?
Yeah.
Give her what she needs and you'll never fucking lack. You won't.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure how this churchy discussion turned into this, but it just did.
yeah, that's us, you guys.
Yeah, it just did. But, well, I kind of know because we came from this weird, like, sexual background. But no, like, for real, like, it's a thing, and marriages break up all the time over this. I've got some friends right now that are really good friends. They love each other, but they're not compatible like that as far as I can tell. Maybe there's more to the story than what I know. But I've also known other people in the very same situation that they're like, oh, well, we're good, we're fine, we're friends, but we're roommates, right? Like, sorry. Here's a part, actually, DMs are open again. You guys can reach us on our Facebook stuff, our Instagram stuff, whatever. I'd love to hear feedback on this. But here's the thing. Here's what I would like to learn. What I would like to know is how. I told Cherie this today. I said, I've been thinking a lot about this, right? Because people have their own little like vision, their idea of how like a marriage, a relationship should go, and then there other people have another idea, and maybe these guys over here have figured it out, but these guys have not, but they think they have, right? And it's like the bees trying to tell the flies that honey is way better than shit is, right? And the flies just don't fucking understand because they like the shit, right? And when I talk about that is like, it's like the couples, the people over here that are getting all the things they want. They're like, listen, no, you got to stay in shape for each other. You got to be sexy. You got to go out. You got to have fun. You got to go on date nights. You got to do these. You got to use your tools. You got to use all the fucking cool shit. You like, if you're a guy, like, don't give away your sports, like, keep your sports car and like ride your bike and your motorcycle and your big truck and stay sexy. And girls like continue to like dress hot and be fit and show some skin and this and that. But then there's all the flies over here. They're like, well, that's not fair. I shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to gain some weight and still be attractive to him because he should just love me for who I am, and I should be able to do all these things and blah 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 and be able to like refuse sex when I want, this and that. And it's like, listen, these people over here have it going on. They're enjoying their lives. They're tasting the honey. What I would like to know is, how do you take that concept and teach it to people that don't see value in it? They want to have a better life, but they don't see value in those concepts. Does that make any sense? Or did I just ramble on for a long time about a bunch of nonsense?
You might have rambled. No.
In my head, that makes some sense, right?
No, I mean...
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept because we're so taught in the world today that we should be so accepting of each other. But really, when it comes down to it, you really have to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. If you are in a relationship, are you really physically attracted to your partner? If you're not, then that changes the dynamic of you on a sexual level. That changes the dynamic in some of your other aspects of your life, of your marriage, right? Like there's so many things that we're taught these days that tell us that we need to be a certain way. And I think it becomes very confusing, right? Because really what it comes down to is where you have to be honest with yourself and what you want and what you know your partner wants. And if you're in a relationship where you want to be with the other person, you've got to find value in what they want out of your relationship. Now, There are some abusive relationships, so I'm not talking about those abusive relationships, but with Brandon and I, like, we really look at our relationship and we try to have the best when it comes to everything. And there's some things that we've kind of figured out because, life has been hard, and the more you guys listen to this podcast, you'll see all of the hard shit that we've been through, and we've been through some really hard things, and you have to want to be with that person to make it through those things. There's seriously, like, in those moments where we've had those hard times, I go back to the fact that Brandon never stopped trying to be his best self for me. And I hope I've done that the same for you. And I think that kind of keeps us holding on to each other in those hard times, because we know that it's not a selfish act. It's for each other, and we want to make ourselves better for each other. And I think that that's kind of the hard concept to get across to people, is changing from what the world views as the right way to think and what actually works in a relationship and brings you closer together.
Yeah. Well, tell you this, like, I mean, there's this concept of like, well, this person should just love me for me. I'm getting older. I can let myself go. I can do actual. I mean, it's just like her mom said at her on her wedding day, how she wouldn't have to try after that. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of bullshit, right? I don't know about you guys, but it would fucking break my heart if I knew that she didn't like have genuine like attraction towards me.
Yeah.
That would be awful. Like, why the fuck would you want that, right? Like, well, I'm just going to be the dude. I'm going to have a belly out to here, and she's just going to have to love me because she's stuck with me. That doesn't sound like fun, right? No. I want to be able to come home. Just this afternoon, I came home. I went out on a ride with some guys, this group ride. I came home, and I pulled up, and she was outside the house in the front yard, and she had a little smile on her face and everything. And I don't actually know what she was thinking. But I told her, I said, you know what? I can read your mind sometimes. She goes, oh, yeah, what? And I'm like, yeah, you think I'm sexy as shit right now, right? You did, though, huh? That was true.
Oh, he's so adorable,
See? Right?
isn't he?
No, but I'm just saying, it would break my heart if I felt like she just like loved me because she felt like she had to, right? I want to, like, until I'm fucking dead, I want to have that genuine burning desire, like attraction. And I think that, I don't know why everybody doesn't want to have it. Like, that really like blows my mind, actually.
I think that people just become comfortable, but I think that's like a big thing.
But I've had discussions with people, and they're like, well, it's not fair. And I'm like, I don't really fucking care what's fair. It's what's real, right? You know?
Yeah, I mean, even with women, honestly, let's be honest with ourselves, okay? Let's just think about this for a second. What are some of the reasons why we don't want to have sex? One can be that we don't feel sexy in our own skin. Well, if you decide to be comfortable with yourself, and I'm not saying you have to be in the perfect condition, just be healthy and be you and be confident in your own skin. And when you're confident in your own skin, that's when you can be your best when you are having sex, honestly. Like, and to feel confident enough to where, like, when you go on a date, you feel like you look in the mirror and you're like, I can't wait for him to see me in this outfit. I can't wait for him to see it. Because guess what? When you guys first started dating, what did you do? You dressed up for each other because you're like, okay, I'm going to wear this outfit, and I hope he likes it, and I hope that I look cute. Like, you're so worried about pleasing him and wanting to get him to like you. And I think that's something that's huge in relationships that people forget to do for each other.
Then they like you, and then, like, all of a sudden you get, like, hitched, and you're like, then you stop it, and they're like, I don't understand why they're not liking me. Because you're not doing the same shit that you did before.
Yeah, and how much more fun is life?
And that's not just a ladies thing, that's a guy's thing. Like,
100%.
Believe you me, I got brothers out there, like buddies out there that, yeah.
But here's the thing is, like, keeping you in that place of where you can keep that romance going, where you can keep wanting each other, like desiring each other.
Yeah.
That's like a huge difference than just being content with each other. And how much more exciting is life going to be when you desire after the person that you're already married to? I mean, we're coming on, like, what, 19 years?
Yeah.
And again, things aren't always perfect with us. We've been through some crazy things. But the things that we really draw from, that we go back to, is we have to want to be better for each other. And we have to, like, in every aspect of our relationship, you know, like, I know when he's feeling bad. He knows when I'm feeling bad. And we're always going to be there for each other. And I guess I can't say we always will, but, like,
Whatever.
so far.
I'm going to. Are you not?
Well, you don't know.
Yeah. Anyways.
No, but really, like, that's kind of what we wanted to say. And we want to talk a little bit about sex. We talked about, like, having that more conversations.
It's kind of
an important thing.
But it's going to be a discussion that comes back up again, though, right? Because we kind of made this transition from this weird, like, upbringing and religion into, like, we got married and then all of a sudden we're talking about sex, right? But the reason that's important, though, is because we kind of overcame something that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Right? And when they don't, it's super, super destructive.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily, though, like, you don't have to be religious to, I don't think, to have this, like, make sense to you either, or to identify or anything like that with the story we're telling. The point is, though, is like, we were raised weird. We had weird ideas. Shit was different than what it is now, for sure. We still made a commitment, but then we moved beyond that and figured it all out, right? There's a lot more story to come along with this, but that was like, we did make a little bit of a strange transition in there. But it's okay, though. It's still good, right? That's like I said before, I want this to be raw, real. We're just having a discussion, and neither side of that is less important or more important than the other side of it, right?
Well, I think you said it, and just understanding that even if you kind of come from a background of being messed up a little sexually, you can still make progress and you can have what you want out of that if you really work towards being the person that you want the other person to be.
Just because you come from someplace, this is something that I have a hard time understanding this, I think, the way that other people do. When they're like, oh, well, so-and-so did this, or they did this, or I was treated like this, or this or that. And I'm just like, I understand what you're saying. But the past, I mean, think about this. The past is no longer real. I mean, effectively, it's fucking gone, right? Now, if you could tweak your brain, if you could tweak your mindset a bit, you honestly could trick yourself into thinking that it never even happened at all. So-and-so did this to you, right? But you're acting as if they still are. It might have been a decade ago, but you're acting as if they still are, right? You're feeling as if they still are. But if you realize that was a decade ago, it's not happening anymore. This person's probably not even thinking about you anymore. You really can learn to just move on and live your life differently. And that's actually, I'll say this, and then we need to end this show for tonight. But when we just had this discussion the other night with a friend of mine, we talked to him about his exit of the church and all that stuff. And the thing that we talked about that we sort of ended on was how interesting it when all of a sudden we realized for the first time that we got to rewrite our moral code. We got to stop living the way somebody else told us we had to. And then all of a sudden, from this certain point on, we can live the way that we decide to. We choose to, right? And that's applicable in like so many different ways. One, just the way you live your everyday life. Two, the way you live with your relationship, and so many ways beyond that. But that's what we had to get to. We were raised a certain way. We got married a certain way. We lived that way for a bit. And then eventually we're like, no, we're gonna change this shit up a bit. And we're going to talk more about that, I'm sure. There's like, we only like fucking scratched the surface of that one. Even though it took an hour.
So much more to be said.
Yeah. And again, we're not trying to be offensive. We're just telling our story the way things went, you know?
Yeah, and just so everybody knows that it's a story that's really hard to tell, but I feel like it's something that needs to be told because I know there's so many other people out there who deal with the same stuff, and it kind of plays into one of our biggest things that almost separated us.
Yeah, we've had people in our lives that are important to us too that kind of never overcame that, and 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, still married to the same person, would say stuff to us like, well, this whole time I've never had an orgasm before. This person like never has gotten me to get there, and I don't know how to get myself there and stuff like that. And I'm just like mind blown. Like,
and he's opening a whole
20 years down the road, and you don't
he?
know how to get there, right? You know, but that is real, authentic trauma that comes from the way that we were raised. I'm thankful that we didn't deal with it quite to that degree, right? I think we're pretty good at what we do, but other people though are not so lucky, and so we hope to be able to reach a few of you.
Yeah, we just hope that maybe something that we can say can help you guys realize that there is another way to life, and you can have that, and you just have to change your mindset to thinking that you deserve it, that you're worth it for it, that it is possible to have something greater than you've ever known before.
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks for joining us. You guys are awesome. I'll see you guys
Peace
later.
out.
Love you.